of Tampa Bay Politics. This is our little weekly episode. So if you're too busy knowing what's going on in politics in the Tampa Bay area, tune in to us.
We do the work for you. We bring you the guests. We let them speak their mind, and you get all the information you need without leaving the comfort of your home during the pandemic.
I'm Angela Birdsong, your co-host, affectionately called the Medicare Lady, with my co-host, Miss Mary Geraci. And we are so happy because with us, we have an outstanding community servant who's going to sign up for more.
Yeah, he's ready.
Mr. Harry Cohen, currently
Welcome, Mr.
working
Cohen.
for the clerk of the court, but he is now running. He's official candidate for Hillsborough County Commission. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm glad to be with you today. Nice to be out of the house in the office.
Even though we look like this because we care.
Okay.
We're taking
All right.
care of it.
We are COVID safe here with
Absolutely.
our gloves and our
Yes.
masks.
Absolutely.
All right. You know, we always start out with your unique story. So where were you born?
Well, I was born right here in Tampa at St. Joseph's Hospital, actually.
A native Floridian.
Very rare. A native Tampanian.
A native of Tampa. My parents both live right around the corner from me, where I live now.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but it's been.
Hey,
it's
I like
actually,
it.
Given the circumstances we're in with the pandemic,
Right.
it's very, very nice to have everyone close and at least be able to look in on each
My
other.
mom is 94 and across the street, so I'm good with it.
And I live with my 83-year-old mom, so we're all in it together here
Yes.
as with our families, which is awesome.
So that's a nice thing. I grew up really divided between Tampa and Cincinnati, Ohio. My parents were divorced. My
okay.
mom is from Cincinnati, and she returned to Tampa about 10 years ago. I went to college in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, which is, of course, the site of the famous Civil War battle where the tide really turned in the favor of the North.
Okay.
It's really as far north as the war got.
Right.
And then I went to law school in New York City before returning to Tampa in 1998. And it was then that I went to work for Barry Cohen, the well-known late criminal defense lawyer.
So you went right from law school to work with Barry?
It was about 2 years in between.
Okay.
But it was really my first real job as a lawyer.
Okay.
And it was.
And what a doozy. I mean, you went right to the top. Mr. Cohen was covering some major cases in Tampa Bay. I was at Channel 28 News, and he and I became dear friends. I covered almost every large case he did, and you were right there in the wings, right?
So it's really funny that you say that. He and I are not related, by the way, even though our names are similar. But I literally went from being unemployed to being on Dateline NBC in 1 week.
Overnight. Yeah.
Wow.
Easy.
This friend of mine from Connecticut, he said, my parents just saw you on Dateline NBC. I thought you didn't have a job. And I said, oh, well, no, I just got hired to work on this really big case.
So you jumped in.
And that was the Eisenberg case,
the frying
right?
pan, right? You just went right into the frying pan. Eisenberg case.
It was really a fascinating case. It was about 20 years ago, and it was the case of a missing baby who was never found. And interesting, I was really the junior person on the case. And what Barry hired me to do was actually to listen to the wiretaps. Because there was a wiretap inside the Eisenberg's bedroom and in their living room.
Wow.
And little did I know.
Who put the wiretap there?
The federal government, the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Yeah.
And little did I know, on the other side of the wiretap was a young man at the sheriff's office who was sort of my counterpart listening to the tapes, and his name was Chad Chronister.
Oh,
and of course
Chad
he's now the Hillsborough County Sheriff. So it's a funny story of how things move around. Anyway, I stayed at Barry's office for about 5 years, and in 2004, when Pat Frank was elected clerk of the Circuit Court of Hillsborough County,
What year was that? What year did she come in? 2004.
Well, yeah, and she started in 05.
05, okay.
When she was elected, she asked me to be her chief deputy and basically come and run the office. And
Nice.
that is
Very nice.
what I did for 6 years prior to being elected to city council. And since I left city council, I worked at the clerk's office doing various different things part-time when I was on the city council. But since I left city council...
City council, what seat?
So I was elected to city council in 2011 to District 4, which is the South Tampa seat.
Okay.
And I was reelected to that seat in 2015. And I term limited off in 2019. Many of you will remember I ran for mayor in 2019. And while I came up short, I think we had a great campaign. And
Yes.
that led Mayor Castor to ask me to be the chair of her transition advisory committees, which I
Wonderful.
did immediately upon leaving office. And we can talk about that a little bit later because
Okay.
some of the areas that we focused on, affordable housing, workforce
Right.
development, transportation development, those are things that clearly we're gonna want to talk about through the course of the hour. But anyway, currently I'm the general counsel to the clerk of the circuit court, and in that capacity, I handle the office's legal affairs. But it's just coincidentally, the clerk is a defendant in the case related to the transportation sales tax.
Yeah,
the
the
1%.
lawsuit. Yeah.
So I've been involved in that. And then also we have been involved in the fight over Amendment 4. We have been actually a witness in a very important case that got the law related to the fines and fees as a prerequisite to voting.
The law
overturned.
that we voted for, so we could finally have money for
Right.
transportation.
Yes. So, I mean,
And
you're involved
Stacey
in a
White
lot of
took us
heavy
to
stuff.
court.
Absolutely. What a mess. You
I only have one thing to say. Vote blue.
That's her moniker right there. We need T-shirts. Vote blue. But what I find exciting about you and your tenure is you've been on both sides of the coin. You've been on the city side, and now you're looking at the county side. So all of the big stuff. And I think
Yeah, you're right in the thick of it.
yeah, as we move on, or maybe we should jump start now because I know you've got a lot to talk about. What is the difference? What are you able to do as a county commissioner as opposed to city council?
What a great question.
You brought it up.
I know. I really, it really is a great question.
It is.
Because
I
it's
don't
very
know all of
different. The city of Tampa is a strong mayor form of government.
Right.
And so the mayor really holds the power. The city council basically ratifies what the mayor does. Unless the city council can get 5 votes to override a mayoral veto, the mayor is very much in charge of the city. The exception to that is in land use and zoning, where the city council has almost complete authority.
Right.
Okay.
But other than that, and voting on the budget once a year, and also sitting as the community redevelopment agency, the mayor has the power. In the county, you have 7 elected county commissioners who hire an administrator to actually run the day-to-day operations of the county. And so you don't have an elected official who is actually answerable in an executive position to the electorate. The commissioners are. So they have a much broader authority over county policy than a city council member would in the city. The other big difference is that in the city, the police chief is hired by the mayor. In the county, the chief law enforcement officer, the sheriff, is elected by the people. And that is a very,
Which is
very
now
different
Chad Tronister.
role.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest issue where the county is going to be the preeminent player in future years clearly is going to be transportation. It's going to be.
It has to be.
It has to be a major focus for us. But like so many things, the pandemic, and when I say the pandemic, I mean both the public health crisis and the economic fallout. The pandemic is going to be central in terms of how we move forward. I think that before this happened, at least among transit activists, there was pretty broad agreement about the types of solutions that we needed to look to.
Yeah, it was looking good. It was cohesive. It looked like we were moving forward in a fashion.
And
before the lawsuit.
And
well,
the roads,
so you
the
have
roads
the
were
1 cent.
crowded.
You have the 1
we're
cent,
done.
which is going to give all the municipalities in Hillsborough County some control over their transportation destiny because they'll have some dollars to put into what they want to
Yes.
do. what that getting knocked off was one thing, but then I think the other thing is we don't know yet how this pandemic is going to affect the economy long term and commuting patterns long term. Are less people actually going to work in offices? I mean, is this really going to remain this way, or are we going to go back to the old way?
Well, in our pre-interview, I said I thought it was a good thing. People are working from home, less pollution, less traffic, less folks on the road, and you tell me what you replied. I like what you said.
So I completely agree with you. I think those are all good things. But the other piece of it is, if less people are commuting, do you have the
urgency?
Or do you have the numbers to support rail, for example?
Right.
And if social distancing is going to be something that's going to have to be practiced moving forward, we have to design our transportation systems to account for that. So, and we don't know the answer to any of this yet. You know, I think when all of this started, you can see me struggling with my mask. I'm still having difficulty with it.
But that's okay. You're wearing it, so we appreciate that.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think at the beginning of this, most of us assumed that it would be temporary and that at some point things would, quote, return back to normal. The longer it goes and the more that we see the ups and downs with the numbers of cases and the spikes and let's be honest, the fact that we do not have this under control. We do not. And a
vaccine could actually be years. I mean, they're making it seem like could be shorter, but we don't know.
Even if you have a vaccine, how long does it inoculate you for? Is there another strain? Does the fact that you've had it even make you immune for a long period of time? We don't really even know these things yet. So as the prospect of it going longer gets more and more real, I think everything that we were assuming, all of the assumptions underlying all of our policy plans, may need to be rethought.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like you and everybody else running for these offices may be on a precipice of truly recreating this government. What do you think?
Oh, I think there is no question that there is profound and significant change taking place in our society and in our governments, and we don't quite know yet what it's all going to look like.
So how are you aptly suited? You sound like a sharp guy. It sounds like you know what you're getting into. I mean, who runs for office in the middle of a pandemic? You're doing it, but you're bringing a lot to the table. How are you suited to deal with this rather somewhat nebulous, mysterious thing that everybody's dealing with right now? Like I said, the rules have changed, the game has changed, and you're going to be a game changer.
Well, that's a very good question. First of all, when I was elected to city council in 2011, it was when Bob Buckhorn was originally elected, and many of the city council members were new. And we came into office in the middle of a very deep recession, and we had to cope with some really significant economic headwinds before we could lead the city out of it. And I think that experience will be very helpful with this, because you do things differently when you're contracting, when you don't have the economic underpinnings. And so I think that's very helpful. But the biggest thing I bring to it, I think, is actually just my personality in terms of how I function related to other board members. I always felt on the city council that the most important thing was that we act cohesively and that we not worry so much about who presented an item or who proposed it, but that we all want to sort of be supportive of it together, and we want to collaborate.
A unified front?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, here's the good news. You've got 3 Democrats on the county commission now to work with,
and you also have a fourth coming out of I assume out of District 3. So we have the prospect of 5.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something else. On the other, on maybe that block of 5 will be very effective a great deal of the time. But you'll be surprised how many times the coalitions will shift.
It's true.
In order to create a 4-vote majority. Right. And I will tell you on city council.
Local government, you never know.
Well, one of the things that was really important on city council was understanding that this vote may be this block of 4. This vote may be this block of 4.
Right.
The third vote may be a combination of the two. When you're voting on literally thousands of things, you should never burn the bridges with the people that you need for the other votes.
That's true.
Because the next vote could form a different
They
coalition.
could go your way.
And seeing how those coalitions form, nurturing them, bringing people together toward a common goal, recognizing that you're not going to necessarily get your way 100%, but that if you get enough, it's important to make sure that the perfect isn't the enemy of the good.
So your work is definitely cut out for you to coming into this new era of politics, new era of governing. What are, as I'm going to steal your question because it was a good one, what are some of your top 3 priorities?
Well, let me start off by saying that my biggest priority on city council ended up being dealing with stormwater and flooding issues. And
which is a big issue in South Tampa.
Well, and actually a big issue in District 1, which is the coastal Tampa Bay district.
Yeah. Okay.
And I continue to see the issues related to sea level rise and the rise in the water table and hurricane threats as a major issue for this region, particularly for District 1. And I'm going to be very vigilant on watching not just how the city's stormwater program unfolds, because it's still unfolding, but also as a countywide elected policymaker, both on the Environmental Protection Commission and on the County Commission. We're going to be looking very clearly.
You know what? Just say a little bit about the EPA, because a lot of people don't know what that is.
The Environmental Protection Commission, the EPC,
I'm sorry.
Is it's the group that basically sets environmental policy for Hillsborough County, and it's made up of the 7 county commissioners. That's who the board of the EPC is. But what's really important about that is that it gives your elected officials direct responsibility for making policy in one of the areas that is going to be most critical to the health of this region in the coming years. It has to do with water quality, air quality, making sure that we don't build in places that are environmentally sensitive, acquiring environmentally sensitive lands.
Okay.
Which I have to say we've been doing.
Which we do under the Jan Platt ELAP program. It's a wonderful program. Wonderful.
It is. And even our state is starting to save sacred lands, as we call them, and the Everglades is starting to really work on its recovery as well.
And to your point, people often look for something that government's doing well. That's something we've done really well.
Yeah,
in
we can be happy about that.
Yes. So you asked me about my top priorities. Another area that's going to definitely need our attention. We know transportation and infrastructure is a major issue.
Oh,
we know we can talk about that. But another area that's going to need our attention is going to be the arts and cultural institutions.
Okay.
If you saw the governor's vetoes from his budget, he took money away from the Strass Center. He had to do these things in order to balance the budget during the pandemic. But if we want our arts and cultural institutions to survive, Hillsborough County is going to have to step up and be a supporter of them financially.
And how would you do that to support the arts?
Well, we'll find out what they need.
Okay.
My guess is at this point
they need everything. Probably
they're going to have holes in their operating budget.
Absolutely.
I think
it's been bad. It's been bad.
Prior to this, both the Art Museum, the Tampa Museum of Art, and the Strass Center had major capital campaigns that were going to start to do things to their physical plant. I don't know what the status of those things is now, but clearly those organizations, you take the Strass Center, they can't have performances with Broadway closed and having to maintain social distancing in the theaters. So if we want to save these institutions, we're going to have to step in with some money. And City of Tampa doesn't have any money. They're going to have a $70 million deficit next year.
Wow.
The court system is based on fines and fees and traffic tickets. They certainly don't have any money. They're going to have to be supplemented by the county. They're going to have shortfalls. So the county commission is going to have its hands full funding a lot of the necessities and a lot of the things that we care very deeply about. If there is a federal bailout, and I saw an interview with Speaker Pelosi last night where she indicated that their number one priority coming back from July 4th is going to be a bill that is aimed at local governments to help pay for things like first responders, sanitation workers, the day-to-day county services that people
The
depend
essential
on,
workers,
the essential
employees.
But she
essential
has to get it
services.
past the Grim Reaper.
Well, that remains a question of whether or not they're going to be able
Mitch
to do that.
McConnell.
Yeah.
But without that, the local governments are going to be devastated. And we are just, we cannot dip into our reserves in any kind of significant way, because if you do, the bond markets immediately lower your credit ratings.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And the minute you start bonding anything, you're paying higher interest rates,
Yeah.
which is really the cruelest tax of
It's
all.
a double whammy, yeah.
Because you get nothing for it.
You need the money, then you suffer because they take money from you for needing the money. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a conundrum. Absolutely.
I think that raising money is going to be a challenge too during the pandemic. From
Yeah.
from private sources.
Well, and I hate to say this,
I don't know.
always trying to be hopeful. I have more money now because of the pandemic. I am not going out to dinner 3 or 4 nights a week. I'm not going to the mall. I'm not shopping. So, again, this new creative, almost renaissance. It's a renaissance. It's a renaissance to figure out how to get these things.
So the flip side, though, of what you just said, you're not probably spending as much money on dry cleaning anymore either, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So there's an environmental benefit to that, but there's
Absolutely.
also a business out there that's no longer able
Right.
to
Yeah.
to pay its employees and pay its
understand.
rent.
It's
The
a catch.
restaurants are suffering.
Oh,
It's a catch-22. I do understand it, but when you're trying to save your own life, you have an agenda, and it's difficult.
no question. And
Every day is difficult.
And then, of course, we have the drop in tourism and the drop in people. We are so dependent on people coming to
Yes,
vacation here.
Huge.
That's right.
And that has also been decimated in this situation. And
Yeah.
so, I think it's going to be a very, very challenging time, and I think we're going to have to make some very tough decisions in terms of what our priorities are. We can talk a little more about transportation. We can talk about infrastructure, but at the end of the day, I think we are really in a holding pattern, in a sense, to see how this thing plays out over the next couple of months.
So, that being said, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of creative thinking, consensus, weighing issues, and evaluating. Like this job just tripled in what you're going to have to do to get us
Talking
back
about
off
the
ground.
job, one of the things people really want to know is, what does a county commissioner do?
Well, the county has a $6-point-something billion budget. And that budget is really an expression of the values and desires of the 7 county commissioners, hopefully representing their very diverse constituencies. I think one of the biggest challenges for an entity the size of Hillsborough County, which, remember, is larger than a number of U.S. states,
Oh, yeah.
is that, you talk about diversity. Usually when we talk about diversity, we're talking about race or ethnicity or gender. But the diversity issues in Hillsborough County are very much geographic. They're very much about whether or not you're urban, suburban, or rural.
Right.
And what type of a lifestyle expectation you have in terms of the density around where you live.
Yes.
And everybody that fits into those different categories has very different views on how they think our infrastructure ought to develop. And a good county commission, I think, will come together and try to balance the different needs and concerns in the different areas. There's tremendous concern in parts of South County about overbuilding outside of the urban service area.
So we're talking
where
Riverview, Apollo Beach.
Exactly. Where there are, and east of there, where there is not infrastructure built out.
But there's thousands and thousands of homes just coming up like mushrooms, growing all
But
over
on the
way.
other hand, if you go into the city of Tampa to the area south of Gandy, for example, that is in the urban service area. That is where the Planning Commission has directed growth is supposed to go. And they're just as frustrated as the people in South County because they feel that they can't handle the congestion and traffic and the burden of the growth. So, pandemic notwithstanding, this region, this 5-county region, is expected to grow by at least 600,000 people in the next 20 years.
Wow.
And those people are coming whether we like it or not. And they're probably going to be coming at an even faster clip from the Northeast as a result, A, of the tax structure up there, and B, of what the pandemic has done to places like New York City, where it's no longer...
Decimated them. Decimated them, yeah.
So
Horrible.
we have got to... This growth question, the people are coming. They're going to need housing. They're going to need infrastructure support. They're going to need schools. They're going to need schools. They're going to need sidewalks to schools so their kids can walk safely to school. Since our state says that if you live within 2 miles of a school, you're no longer eligible for the bus, for the courtesy busing. They call it courtesy busing. I don't know what courtesy it is to actually take kids to school.
That's an odd word for that. Courtesy busing.
Hey, why don't you throw some impact fees in there and regentrification just to make it all...
Well, the county commission just did raise impact fees for schools, and that was something I supported, and I think it was something that was long overdue. But going forward, these issues are going to keep coming at us. They are not... They're not things that are going to stand still. There may be a pause during the pandemic, but it won't be very long before we're back to these.
So now explain impact fees real quick.
Yeah,
for our viewers.
Well, theoretically, when something is built, it's supposed to pay for the infrastructure that it's going to be consuming.
Right.
Whether or not that you're talking about parks, whether you're talking about wastewater and stormwater systems, whether you're talking about transportation needs like widened roads and mobility
and
things,
fire.
And then of course schools are one of the most
libraries,
important ones.
whatever you need.
Yes. So the rates are set by the county commission, and recently they have raised a lot of the impact fees across a lot of different categories. And we'll see if that is helpful. What I would say about that is that the county needs to start actually building infrastructure with this money. I mean, we have got to start investing in our stormwater infrastructure county-wide.
It should be build it and they will come.
No, they're coming.
No, I think
but if you build it prior to their coming, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
is there a vision? This is where I'm confused, and I'm a creative thinker. I do film and television, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there has to be a new approach. It has to be defined. It has to be applicable to everything. That's what I'm saying. You have to come in and recreate this whole mess. It's a mess. So it's not working for us.
There is something called the comprehensive plan.
There you go.
And Hillsborough County has a planning commission that is appointed by the cities and by county commissioners to actually develop and implement this comprehensive plan. And they actually screen land use applications before they go to the city council or to the county for planning commission approval. It's been my observation, being on the city council over the course of the years, Planning Commission, I always found, did a very, very good job of screening what came in front of us. The problem was sometimes the underlying elements of the comprehensive plan were out of date, had not been reviewed to take into account today's reality. We had a very weird case come in front of us where someone actually wanted to dredge in the Rocky Point area right off of the Courtney Campbell Causeway.
I remember hearing that.
In order to build townhouses.
In the news, exactly.
Literally dredge in the middle of the water. And it really got to us because of a series of flukes. We ended up voting it down, and I believe we voted it down.
It was in the paper
unanimously.
Yeah.
But there are times when some crazy things can get to you. I don't remember exactly if that was. I think it was an issue with the comprehensive plan.
I think they actually did that in New York, though. They reclaimed some water in Manhattan.
Unfortunately, as robust as this conversation is, and it's going quickly, we have to pay some bills. We have to take a break. We'll be right back after
30
these
minutes.
messages. It went fast, right? I knew it would.
can do this together.
All right, let's go.
Storks know how to keep kids safe. Do you?
What?
Oh my gosh, you don't know.
I know.
You don't. Oh man, you laugh when you're uncomfortable.
No.
Making sure your child is in the right car seat is one of the steps to safer travel.
I will rock this.
You will rock this.
To know for sure that your child is in the right car seat for their age and size, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
Cool. Very cool.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan.
Separated.
We were able to get in touch with each other
and had
in
no
no time.
idea how to find each other.
The whole experience was
the
fine.
most frightening 10 hours of my life.
If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay
it's
calm
don't
and
ignore
keep to the
this
plan.
message.
Some parents plan ahead, some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. You can make a difference by dropping off a hot meal and saying a quick hello. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
We're back for our second half with our candidate for County Commission, Mr. Harry Cohen. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun so far.
I do have a quick question. What about corruption? With some of those county commissions getting money from developers?
Well, corruption is a tough word.
Okay.
And, everybody is forced to exist under the campaign finance system the way that it is. And, I think that it's all public and people ought to look at who's giving money to who, and they can make judgment accordingly. I will tell you, though, it's been my experience, particularly at the city council level, where, you make your decisions based on the law and you make your decisions based on neighborhood sentiment, on competent and substantial evidence that comes in front of you in these land use cases. Now, at the county commission, they actually do less of it than we did on city council. On city council, we did land use once a month in the evening, sometimes twice a month, and it was 10 to 15 cases a week, and it was a lot.
Okay.
In the county, they actually farm a lot of it out to a hearing officer, and one of the reasons for that is to take the politics out of that type of decision.
But did you feel that a lot of these developments were just rammed through because some of the county commissioners were getting paid by developers?
I really don't have any knowledge of that at all.
Okay,
I can tell you that in my time on the city council, I served with a group of people that I honestly believe every one of them made the best decisions that we could based on what was in front of us. What happens sometimes is you vote for something and the person contributes to you in the next campaign. It's not a question of having done it before. It's a question of doing it after. Sometimes people just appreciate the fact that you listened to their side of the story and that you considered it. I've had a lot of people give me money who I didn't agree with on major things. I mean, I will tell you, I voted for a millage increase in the city of Tampa at one point. I was the deciding vote to decide how much to raise the property taxes. I voted for and led the fight for a stormwater initiative that added money to everybody's stormwater bills. There were a lot of people and a lot of industries that were unhappy about it. The phosphate industry was furious with me when we voted on the city council to
Mosaic?
Well, it was more the industry. It wasn't.
Okay.
I don't know about the company themselves, but the industry was furious. We banned certain chemicals from fertilizers that are sold in the city of Tampa because we were so concerned about the water quality.
For the runoff, yeah.
That's right. I mean, but you do those things because they're the right things to do.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes people, my experience has been if you're honest with people and you tell them what your position is, they appreciate your honesty. What makes enemies, what creates ruptures in relationships is when you're not honest. And when you don't tell the truth about what you're doing. I'll tell you one of my favorite political stories. When I was running for city council the first time, someone came to me and they said that one of the fireworks companies contribute to my campaign. And I said that that was fine, but they should know that I am very uncomfortable with a lot of things related to fireworks, and I didn't know that I was ever going to be able to be on their side if something came up related to the regulation of fireworks. I think they can be very dangerous. And so they I guess talked about it, and they ended up giving half of whatever they were planning on giving, and that, you know, so it's just sort of a funny story. It just that's the way the real world is.
Right,
right. And that's the real world. I mean, I don't know what to say.
And important for our viewing audience to hear how you operate. So it sounds like you have a good sense of fairness and balance.
Well, the other thing is, if I'm allowed, I'll meet with anybody. My rule on city council, there were certain land use votes where you were not allowed to meet with anybody.
Right.
Okay.
Where you're restricted. In that case, I wouldn't meet with anybody or talk to anybody. But if I was allowed and you requested a meeting with me, you always got a meeting. Always would meet. Always would look at it. See where it goes.
And
you know?
Speaking of allowed and getting in touch and meeting and contacting you, you sound like, you know, you're the for the people. I'm sorry, Mr. Morgan. Anyway, I'm not doing an ad for him. How do people get in touch with you during this campaign?
So that's
what
a great question.
What can they do for you? What can they do to uplift you? How can they talk to you? Where are you going to be? They
need some volunteers.
So for the entire time that I was on city council, I always made my personal cell phone available to everyone. It is the same number now as it was then.
Well, give it to us.
And it's 813-431-9875.
Say it again.
And for 813-431-9875. You can send me a text message.
Yeah.
You can call me. The other thing you can do is email me at hmctpa@gmail.com.
Say it again. Slow down a little bit.
H as in Harry.
As in Harry. M as in Mary.
Yeah.
C as in cat. TPA as in Tampa at gmail.com.
Okay.
And what I would say about campaign activity, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, this is my fourth campaign in 10 years. And this is like nothing I have ever seen before.
Yeah.
Campaigns are usually really fun.
Yeah.
In 2015, when I was running for re-election to city council, we had a free barbecue at the Gandy Civic Association where people it was mobbed with people. We had a balloon guy, and we had we had all this great barbecue, and we had live music. Even other people that were running for city council came to it.
Oh my gosh.
You know, you go to somebody's house for wine and cheese. You go to their house for coffee.
Sure. We did that on her campaign. Yes, we did.
You know, that's what makes it so much fun.
House parties.
That's what makes local politics so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
This is just totally different than that. There's just no ability to do it, and it's very, very difficult for someone like me that loves. I love to hear what people are saying, and I love to answer people's questions and ask questions and learn. And I'm not able to do it. And it's particularly frustrating for me because while part of the district I'm running in is familiar with me already from my service on the city council, part of the district is not. And
let's talk about your district that you're running in. What does it encompass?
Great question.
It's a very, very uniquely drawn district that covers the entire coastal area of Hillsborough County. And it starts up in Odessa and Keystone, and it's everything west of Sheldon Road down to West Chase and Town and Country, and then over with a northern border of about Waters Avenue into West Tampa, another border at Armenia basically going down, and then it includes the entire South Tampa Peninsula, parts of downtown, Davis Island, Harbor Island.
Oh, wow.
And then it wraps around and takes in the westernmost piece of South County, everything west of I-75, from Gibsonton to Apollo Beach to half of Ruskin.
Oh my goodness.
And then it cuts off.
They don't know you up there.
Yeah.
So down there.
Down there. Sorry.
Up, down.
Up would be
They don't
Odessa,
know-
down would be Ruskin.
Okay, they don't know you there.
But,
They don't.
But,
They don't.
what makes it a very interesting district, aside from the fact that it's so diverse?
It's huge and very diverse. You've got the Hispanic in West Tampa. You've got, tons of really super diverse groups up in North Tampa.
Yes.
You've got Muslim communities coming in. You have Hispanic communities coming in. Everybody. There's just, as you know.
And 33607 has black folks in it.
Absolutely. So you have a little bit of everybody.
It's a real microcosm of America.
Ruskin, Mexican Americans, Ruskin area, I mean, it's a ton of people there.
But here's the thing. The one thing that most of the people in the district have in common is that they live near Tampa Bay.
Okay.
And so one of the things about this particular district, which includes MacDill Air Force Base, Tampa General Hospital, Tampa International Airport, the Port of Tampa.
Wow. Yeah,
one of the things about this district is that it has a permanent seat on the Emergency Policy Group, the group that, if everyone has been watching on Mondays and Thursdays, has been making policy related to the pandemic. It's 3 county commissioners, the mayors of the 3 cities, the sheriff, and the chairman of the school board.
Those 3 cities would be Temple Terrace, Plant City,
and the city of Tampa.
And
Correct.
the city of Tampa. Okay.
But the District 1 commissioner is always on it, and it's because the EPG was really set up to deal with hurricanes.
Who's the EPG?
The Emergency Policy Group.
Okay, good.
Was set up to deal with hurricanes. I will tell you that from my point of view, I thought the EPG did a really good job at the beginning of the pandemic in first defining what the problem was, issuing the stay-at-home order, and getting everybody to really flatten that curve at the beginning. I think things have broken down more recently over the politics related to mask ordinances and the reopening and the economic
and
fallout.
we got problems from Tallahassee. The governor is not on board with the scientists.
It's really a huge problem. I have to tell you, we try not to spend a lot of time focusing on things we can't control, and both the national and state situation right now are very, very concerning.
You wanted to talk a little bit about the you wanted to talk a little bit about the national situation and how it's tying into our local politics.
I think what's so difficult about this, and without being overtly partisan in what I'm going to say, is that we really desperately needed coordinated federal leadership to get us through this pandemic.
Yeah.
The way that, say, Japan and Germany and some of the countries that really coped with it appropriately did.
New Zealand.
New Zealand is a great example.
Coronavirus at all. Although it's tiny, but it's got a woman leader. Sorry, I had to throw that in.
But what's fascinating, though, is that the countries that dealt with it well because they reacted early and they reacted in a very tight way.
And they were believers in science.
And
there
they
wasn't any of the hoax and
yes.
The Democrats made this whole thing up. This is BS. Nobody believes it. I mean,
It's a miracle it's going to go away in 15 days.
Yeah.
So you have that, and then you have people like the governor who are basically parroting the federal line, and it's what's happened is it's put a tremendous strain on the local governments.
Absolutely.
They're the ones that now have to determine the policy.
Right,
and
we have to pick up the load.
And getting back to the issue we were talking about earlier with the geographic diversity, it's very difficult in Hillsborough County. People that live in the rural part of the county, they live differently. They interact at a different level of proximity to people.
Yeah.
So what may seem like a reasonable expectation for one is not for another. And because of the lack of the federal response, and because the state response has been one as to leave it up to the individual counties, the rules are different every place. Everybody has an opinion now about which rules they're going to follow and which they're not. It's been politicized. And, meanwhile, the virus is raging out of control.
And the virus loves everybody the same.
They love everybody the same. And
yes.
it is going to strain our resources. And it's going to make the economic problem much, much worse than it needed to be. Because now the bars and restaurants reopened, then all of a sudden the bars got pulled back. I mean, you have people that lost their jobs, got their jobs back, went back to work, lost their jobs again.
Yes.
This inability to get this virus under control.
And let's throw in that you can't get an unemployment check in Florida.
Between the economic hardship and the public health crisis of 130,000 people dead at this point, with Dr. Fauci saying yesterday that he thought we would actually get to a point, but brace yourself for this, of 100,000 new cases a day in this country.
Oh, God. We're braced.
We have got a real steep hill to climb.
Absolutely.
Before we get through this.
So,
and I'm sorry I don't mean to be such a downer, but this is a very, very difficult situation, and it needs to be called out for what it is.
Okay. And, that all being true and things that we know and that we talk about on Facebook and in our lives every day, very supportive about mask wearing, both of us, out there, we're wearing them here, we're showing up. So I get back to, it sounds like we're a rudderless ship since we don't have it from the top down. How do you create a city commission? I mean, do you like what Mayor Jane has been doing, Mayor Castor, excuse me, on and on and on? Do you think we have what it takes to tighten up, to tote the load, and to get through this mess together?
Well, related to the coronavirus, I agree with exactly the posture that the mayor has taken on the emergency policy group. And I think that she has been right on in terms of really signaling how serious of a crisis this is. I also think that it's very important to draw the connection between the public health crisis and the outcry over systemic racism in this country. More people of color are being affected by, getting sick from, and dying from this disease than are white people. Why is that? Well, there's a lot of reasons. But we all know that access to affordable housing, to good food, to clean water, to health care,
insurance,
to preventative medicine, all of these things, good nutrition, it all plays a role. And they're all interconnected.
And most of them cannot stay home.
Correct.
They have to work.
They have to work.
There's no doubt.
So they're out there.
We have redefined, I think, what it means to be an essential worker in our society.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are realizing, I hope they're realizing.
Yeah, they're getting it.
I hope they're realizing that the person that goes to work at the grocery store is the only thing standing between you and eating.
Yeah,
that's right.
And,
and we do have bus drivers. They got to work.
And the truck drivers.
Absolutely.
The truck drivers got to work.
And the sanitation workers who are making sure that the city doesn't, or the county doesn't, become unclean.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that being said, how can you assist in assisting marginalized people, African American, impoverished Mexican people working out in fields who may have one truck that is doing corona testing out in Plant City and Waimama and all those areas? How do we come into this government, or you? I'm with you now. I guess I'm really enjoying what you're having to say. How do we get into doing all of this? There's a lot on the plate, but we can't lose our Black communities. We can't lose our marginalized communities.
Well, I was asked at a forum recently what the person representing District 1 could do to help the person representing District 3. And just to give some clarification, District 3 covers the majority of East Tampa. Most of the minority communities in Hillsborough County live in District 3, and that is actually by design.
It's called gerrymandering.
But it's gerrymandering by design in this case because it was meant to try to create a minority majority district.
Yeah.
It was meant to create a district that would represent someone from the community in District 3. Now, having said that, the most important thing the District 1 person can do is to be a partner to the District 3 person. And what do I mean by that? When Frank Reddick served on the Tampa City Council, I served on the Tampa City Council representing South Tampa. Frank Reddick represented East Tampa.
Okay.
One of my things that I wanted to do during my first term was to renovate the Roy Jenkins Pool, which is a historic pool on Davis Island.
Yep.
I wanted that for my district.
Okay.
But Frank Reddick had the Williams Park Pool in East Tampa that was also in need of repair and renovation.
Okay.
And that serves a community that is desperately in need of
That's
recreational.
underserved as well.
That's
yeah,
underserved.
always underserved. Always
South
underserved.
Tampa's not underserved.
But
No, we're talking about the other pool.
No. So what we did
Yeah, we were talking about the other
was
pool.
we did both of them. We made sure that we each supported the other's request.
Okay.
And we did both of them. But the next year, we went back and did Cascading Pool in VM Ybor. We did a second pool in East Tampa because the community is underserved and they did need the additional capacity.
Yeah.
But the point was, honestly, not to be a pig. Not to say, you know what, I can get the votes for mine without getting the votes for yours. The key is to make sure that we lift all the boats together.
Amen.
So when you say what can you do, the first thing you can do
work together.
is work together collaboratively.
Yeah.
And I think that when you start doing that and you don't worry about who gets credit for what, and then by the way, we did that on fire stations too. I did one down in Port Tampa City.
Yep.
They did one in Sulphur Springs, and then we did one up in New Tampa. You divide it up so everybody gets their fair share.
Everybody wins. Everybody wins.
You don't take more than your share. You make sure that you support the others getting their fair share too.
All right, just so people know, right now the person in the seat is Merman.
Sandy Merman, yes.
Okay, she is term limited.
Correct.
All right, so the seat is considered open.
Right.
All right.
And she's been in the seat for 10 years.
Okay.
Prior to that, Rose Ferlita was in the seat, and prior to that, Congresswoman Kathy Castor was in the seat.
Oh, that was
so it is alternated between both parties.
Okay.
It is I would say that it is it's a swing district. It could go either way. And I think that given the type of experience that I bring to the table, I think I would be a very, very good fit.
Okay,
in this
just
seat.
to let the people know that you are facing a primary.
Yes.
And that was August 18th, right?
Correct. And vote by mail ballots go out July 9th.
Okay.
Okay, and we want people to vote by mail.
Absolutely.
And fill out the census.
So we have less than 5 minutes. Can you give out your website slowly? Your website information and your phone number so people can get in touch with you, phone call you, talk to you, chit chat to you. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And by the way, we have yard signs. So if you live in the district and want a yard sign, we're happy to oblige and bring one out to you. I will be out delivering them all weekend. Again, you can reach me by telephone, 813-431-9875. Again, my name is Harry Cohen.
And your website. And
my website is harry2020.com. And my email address is hmcepa@gmail.com.
So with the few waning minutes we have, look at the camera. It's right there. What would you tell our audience?
What I would tell our audience is that we are really facing some very tumultuous times. And the best thing to do when you are flying into a storm is find the most experienced pilot that you can to put in the cockpit of the aircraft. And I don't know how to fly a plane, but I do believe that my experience both on the city council as well as both the general counsel and the chief deputy in one of the largest constitutional offices in Hillsborough County, I think the combination of those things makes me very well suited to the types of challenges that we are going to face in the next 2 years. We are not going to solve this community's problems overnight, but if we put our best minds to it and we work together and collaborate, we can get it done. Harry Cohen for the County Commission.
Can you give us 1 minute on Amendment 4? Because I know you're involved in that.
Yes. So, in terms of Amendment 4, in my role as general counsel to the Hillsborough Clerk of Court, during the lockdown of the pandemic, we were actually a witness in the case that the Brennan Center for Justice brought recently in federal court in Tallahassee to invalidate the requirement that people pay all of their court fines and fees from long ago in order to get their voter registration.
We call that a poll tax.
Well, you can call it a poll tax. You can call it whatever you want, but the judge called it unconstitutional.
Amen.
And one of what we worked to prove in our office was that it's very complicated when you start going back into the records to even figure out what somebody owes that is subject to the requirement that it be paid. And what we showed was that it was so difficult if the records were old that it just made it too onerous of a requirement to put on to people.
It can't even be done.
Because, for example, if you violated your probation after the sentence and got some sort of a monetary penalty for that, that wouldn't be included in the amount. But the original fines and fees would be included in the amount. And you'd have to have the wherewithal to go back through the records and figure out how all that worked. And the judge agreed with us. They thought that was just way too cumbersome.
All right. Can you believe we have a minute left?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And the thing is, we voted on it. I feel disenfranchised as a voter. I wanted it. I voted on it. And then, it upset me as a voter who wanted to help make change to our community.
But actually, no. I mean, the courts did the right thing here. I mean, at the end of the day, you got a
great
but look
how long
judge.
That's taken. How long has that been? A year?
And let's face it, so many people are disenfranchised in our society by how long it takes and how expensive it is to go through litigation.
Absolutely.
You know what, Harry? We're so happy you showed up today.
Yeah, what a great show. Thank you so much.
We learned so much.
I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
And go to the polls, people, August 18th.
Absolutely.
The primaries are where we lose good people, so make sure your vote counts.
We're a huge fan of primaries, so let's do it,
and make sure you're registered Democrat, because you can't vote in the primaries.
You have up till July 20th.
Okay, thank you.
We can keep talking. Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Woo!